A heavy steel plate weighing 1,000 pounds suddenly fell from the sky, yet the boy actually used his own shoulder to take on this crushing impact, and the girl with fine clothes in his arms slowly lifted her head, staring at everything before her in disbelief. While the construction workers upstairs were stunned with fear and the mother collapsed directly onto the ground, but the boy acted as if nothing had happened, brushed off the steel debris from his body, and calmly took a bite of his baked bun. In the clinic, the mother described the thrilling scene that had just occurred, and the doctor was so angry he cursed loudly, saying that in his whole career he had never seen someone survive being hit by a steel plate, and when the mother asked whether they should go to a larger hospital, the doctor immediately snapped until he touched the boy's endlessly flowing pulse. Just a few days earlier, in order to nurse Yichun's lung illness, the mother had moved the children with her to the countryside, and while cleaning the house, Yichun suddenly heard some movement in the corner, so the strong mother carefully picked up a broom and approached cautiously, and in her calling voice, a dirty little boy crawled out from a pile of weeds, and very quickly his gaze was drawn to the blue potatoes on the table. After a brief question, the mother tossed him one, and the boy looked up at the two of them like a wary dog, confirming they meant no harm before picking up the potato from the ground and stuffing it into his mouth together with some grass and crab. Then his eyes stared straight at the two again, and a pungent smell spread, making Yichun frown tightly. Seeing her mother about to give all the potatoes to the boy, the timid Yichun hurried to stop her, begging her not to pay attention to him and to just drive him away. But the kind mother still placed the potatoes before him, and soon the boy was gulping them down like a starving beast. When she saw he was only a pitiful boy, the mother relaxed, and in no time the blue potatoes were gone. Yet the boy still looked at the mother and daughter without leaving. With no other choice, the mother brought the boy home and even called the police, but when the officer approached, the boy suddenly let out a sharp roar in fear, terrifying everyone. "Oh my God, what's wrong with you? Did you kill someone?" the police stammered, but instead of taking him away, the officer refused out of fear of being scolded by his chief. Yichun's cousin grew angry and asked why they didn't just throw him out, but when he met the boy's fierce eyes, he decided not to get involved. In the corner, Yichun peeked out, glaring at the boy in the room, and when he saw the adult stuck in endless discussion without an answer, his heart grew restless, clearly hating the arrival of this filthy child. Taking the boy to the shelter led to no solution, so the mother followed the suggestion to let him stay temporarily until a family could adopt him. That night, the mother prepared a basin of water for him to bathe, but he thought it was for drinking, and when she saw his foolish reaction, she could not help but start washing him herself. And perhaps it had been too long since he felt the ticklish comfort of being cleaned, because he soon fell asleep under her scrubbing. Yichun soon prepared dinner, and when the boy finished bathing, he looked nervously at the unfamiliar surroundings, but under the mother's guidance, when he saw the table full of fragrant food, he rushed forward like a rocket, grabbing dishes and devouring them like a dog at the table, even snatching the only bean from the sister's chopsticks, leaving everyone stunned. Yichun angrily asked his mother if they couldn't find someone to adopt him. Would they have to endure this dog-like boy forever? And the helpless mother could only promise to solve it soon, but Yichun could not bear this rude, dirty child, slammed down her chopsticks and went upstairs, declaring that she would not come down to eat again until the boy was gone. With no one stopping him, the boy no longer held back and ate wildly as if no one else existed. Later, the mother tidied a room and made a gesture telling the boy to rest there, but once she left, he anxiously wrapped himself in cloth, and staring at the bright moonlight outside the window, he suddenly jumped onto the sill and let out a strange sound, one that resembled some kind of creature. The next day, while Yichun was cleaning, she suddenly saw the boy approaching her slowly, and thinking he was about to attack, she collapsed on the ground screaming and grabbed his hair in terror, only to realize in the end that he was only trying to help lift a box, which left her deeply embarrassed, though the awkwardness was broken when the corn in the bowl rolled out, and Yichun quickly handed it to him. Once he got his beloved corn, the boy obediently knelt on the floor and began scratching with a pencil. At that moment, Yichun's cousin entered with bad intentions, and seeing no one around, he began to harass Yichun. But just as he tried to go further, sudden pain shot through his hand. The boy had struck. With a fierce expression, he scared the cousin into backing away, and though the cousin tried to act tough before the fight even began, he ran off in disgrace. Twice now, the boy had saved Yichun, and this finally broke down her guard, leading her to speak to him for the first time, simply telling him to cry. At dinner that night, the younger sister still complained about not getting enough food, but Yichun's eyes no longer held the same resentment, and while doing homework, she kept glancing at a book nearby, the Encyclopedia of Pet Training. Clearly having found a method to handle the boy, she would train him like a dog. The next day, she excitedly cooked a pot of potatoes and learned from her mother that she had named the boy Jexiu, explaining that her late husband had always wanted a son, and Jexiu was the name she had long prepared. Perhaps thinking of her husband's regret, the kind mother had taken the boy in, and soon Yichun, determined to test her method, took out a potato. Yichun wanted Jexu to follow her orders, but instead the potato she offered was gulped down in one bite by Jexu, who rolled his eyes while eating, and this infuriated Yichun, who had worked so hard all morning. So she shouted at him, telling him that when she said wait, he must not eat, and then she pulled out another potato, and Jexu lunged at it again. But when she refused him, Jexu pounced like a hungry wolf, and in the struggle he accidentally bit Yichun's hand, leaving bright red teeth marks that instantly made him freeze. But as Yichun got up, he charged again, and this time her command finally worked. And despite the pain in her hand, Yichun encouraged him that he had done well, and Jexu seemed to understand, stepping back a little, and then Yichun told him that he could only eat when she said so. Eat, eat, eat. And with her patient training, the boy who only thought of food slowly began to understand her instructions, and as the book had taught, she patted his head gently as a reward, and that soft touch completely calmed the wildness in him, the fierce wolf turning into a gentle little puppy. At noon, when it was time to eat, Yichun, who once refused to eat with Jexu, now appeared confidently at the table, telling her mother they could begin. And as her mother nodded, her younger sister opened the door while the others guarded their bowls and chopsticks. And the moment the door opened, the food-obsessed boy shot towards the table like a rocket. But one command later, his movement stopped dead, leaving everyone staring in disbelief at the scene before them. And as Yichun gave orders, eat, wait, eat, little by little, good boy, okay? She felt great satisfaction at the results of her training and teased him. What's wrong? Don't want to eat? That night before bed, she eagerly pulled out the pet training encyclopedia and read out the commands softly. No, wait. And so she taught Jexu simple daily habits, brushing teeth with a head pat, folding blankets with a head pat, tying shoelaces with a head pat, and each time he obediently leaned his head forward to accept it. After dinner, Yichun even managed to win her mother's approval to take Jexu shopping. And in the bustling market full of distractions, Jexu's eyes were only drawn to the baked buns. But it was then that the family wandered into a dangerous construction site, and when a heavy steel plate fell from the sky, Jexu used his body to shield Yichun and her sister. After this, everyone began to accept Jexu from the heart, taking him along even when visiting neighbors, though they still received scolding from the uncle and playing soccer together on the hillside as the mothers cooked delicious meals at home. The sunset painting the village in golden light, and the mother's call for the children to return home echoed through the valley, and the boy who once had nothing finally felt the warmth of a family. In the morning light, Jexu watered a small sprout, and Yichun, looking at his pure and simple nature, decided to teach him some kindergarten lessons. But clearly he was not made for school, so she instead taught him simple pronunciations, and as the distance between them closed, a sweetness filled the air. Soon his eyes fell on the guitar in the corner, and Yichun picked it up shyly, telling him not to laugh at her, and when she strummed the first string, his eyes lit up instantly, and then she began to sing softly, her sweet voice filling the room with a melody about a Cinderella waiting for her prince. And the tender song gave Jexu a relaxation he had never felt before as he gazed at her in a daze, slowly leaning closer as she stroked his head with affection, the touch both praise and love. But Yichun blushed and found an excuse to turn away. Just then the phone rang, and on the other end was the orphanage, telling her that a family had been found to adopt Jexu. And hearing this, Yichun panicked and hung up quickly because she still had many games she wanted to play with him. While the two were playing dress-up together, their mother's voice suddenly came from outside. So Yichun pulled Jexu to hide, and as they looked for a chance to escape, her little sister eating sweet potatoes saw the hunger in Jexu's eyes and, despite Yichun's protest, insisted on giving him one. As the clothes rack fell, their prank left everyone stunned, but in Jexu's eyes, there was still only food. Before bed, as exhaustion overcame him, he stared fixedly at the bathroom door, and when it opened, he leapt up at once, waiting only for Yichun. Seeing that in his eyes, nothing mattered but her and the potatoes, Yichun gave him a meaningful smile before going upstairs, and Jexu understood, following her, only to be refused. He lingered at her door for a while before collapsing asleep right there, and sensing his presence, Yichun quietly dragged her mattress closer, and so the two fell asleep separated only by a wall. Later that night, a strange sound came from outside, and it was her cousin, who had been beaten before, returning drunk and bold, taking out a key to open Yichun's door, but she caught him in the act, and outside he began to harass her again, not realizing that Jexu was hiding in the shadows watching. Seeing someone hurt Yichun, fury burned in his eyes, but the thug, emboldened by his drinking and his gang of lackeys, dismissed Jexu and mocked him. And as he pushed Yichun to the ground, Jexu finally snapped, his eyes turning blood red, his body sprouting black fur, sharp fangs flashing as his frame swelled larger and larger, and with one heavy stomp on the ground, a living werewolf stood before them. Terrified, the thug shoved his own henchman forward, but in front of Jexu Jexiu's iron wall of a body, they were like paper, collapsing in just a few strikes. And within moments, the gang was lying on the ground, forcing the thug to kneel and beg for mercy. But Jexiu, his beast nature awakened, could not stop, until Yichun's terrified voice broke through to him, her command slowly calming him down until he returned little by little to his human form. After returning to human form, the cousin went to the police and tried to force Yichun to point out that Jexiu had just transformed and killed someone, but the police reminded him that he had actually trespassed into their home. And to everyone's shock, the cousin pulled out a bunch of keys and claimed that the house Yichun and her family were living in belonged to him. Seeing his arrogance, Yichun accused him of stealing their family inheritance, and knowing he was guilty, the cousin flew into a rage, roaring and smashing things around the house, even grabbing the guitar from the corner and smashing it to pieces. Outside, Yichun turned to look at Jexiu, wanting to know what she had just seen with her own eyes, but the mute Jexiu could only stay silent, staring at her, until he was taken away by the police. Since there had been no serious injuries, the officers wanted to brush it off, questioning whether the cousin had been drinking, and after scolding the troublemaking thugs, the matter was left unresolved. But the fact remained that Jexiu had hurt people, so to prevent him from doing anything extreme again, the family began cleaning the house to prepare to lock him up. While sorting through the belongings left by the previous owner, the cousin discovered a strange letter, and in order to uncover Jexiu's true identity, he arrogantly went to a university professor's office and described the strange creature he had seen that night. At that time, Yichun, unaware of the danger, was keeping Jexiu company outside the window, and the mother, noticing that Yichun was trying to get closer to Jexiu under the excuse of reading, warned her not to approach him too much. But as a teenager, Yichun did not listen. As soon as her mother left, she secretly opened Jexiu's room, where he sat nervously on the bed, not daring to move without her command, but the moment he heard her order, he quickly ran to the side and pulled out his sketchbook, even drawing Yichun's guitar. Sadly, Yichun told him that the guitar had already been smashed by her cousin, and to cheer him up, she promised that when the snow came, she would build snowmen with him on the hillside, shaping the snow into big round balls and making them into the form of a grown person, saying how much fun it would be, and Jexiu stared at her deeply, etching every word into his heart, then hooked his little finger with hers to seal the promise. Yichun then took him outside, comforting him that he was a good boy, but telling him never to do something like hurting others again, and when he painfully squeezed out the word good from his lips, she finally felt at ease. They ran happily across the grass together, but while running, Yichun's illness suddenly flared up, and she collapsed on the ground, terrifying Jexiu, who quickly carried her on his back and rushed home, only to find no one there, then carried her to the neighbor's house. But the children outside told him no one was home either. Even then, he patted the child's head before leaving, and after searching every house with no one to be found, he carried Yichun into the forest, believing it was the safest place. As darkness fell, torches flickered everywhere as people searched for Yichun, and the cousin and the mother loudly blamed everything on Jexiu until they finally found them under a hillside. With the group came the police and the professor, and when the officer raised his gun, Yichun's sister pushed it down, but still Jexiu was tied up and taken away with iron chains with light-armed men guarding outside. From the professor's mouth, the truth of Jexiu's identity finally came out. During the wartime chaos over a decade ago, the original homeowner had fused wolf genes into humans in order to create super soldiers for battle. And Jexiu was the result of that experiment. Such inhumane experiments, once exposed, would draw condemnation from the world, so to erase it quietly, Uncle Fatty, representing the government, decided Jexiu should be shot, but the mother opposed it fiercely, and to avoid killing the wrong person, they agreed to observe him for a few days with the promise that if he showed any abnormalities, he would be executed. The next day, Yichun had to go to the hospital for tests, and Jexiu clung to the window, gazing longingly as she left, and unable to bear it, Yichun used the excuse of delivering food to visit him, telling him to eat well and that she would be back soon. But as the door closed and blocked her leaving figure, Jexiu, unable to restrain himself any longer, pushed desperately at the door, trying to follow her, and not even the strong men could hold him back, until Uncle Fatty pressed a gun to his head and threatened to kill him. To protect him from harm, Yichun was forced to give him a command, and Uncle Fatty issued his final warning. Seeing Jexiu spared once more drove the cousin crazy, and after Yichun left, the group sat around the monitors to study him, and with the younger sister's explanation, they learned he was carefully practicing writing and that her leaving caused his appetite to drop. With no signs of abnormal behavior, Uncle Fatty had nothing left to say, though he muttered under his breath, and those words gave the cousin the idea that only by killing Jexiu could he possess Yichun. Days of observation revealed no violence from Jexiu, and people began to believe he was only an orphan who had lost his parents, and even the younger sister praised him as being cleaner than herself, brushing his teeth before bed each night. All this enraged the cousin, while the professor, who wanted to protect Jexyu for further study, also started to fight back, and good news came for Yichun, whose illness had improved greatly after months of countryside living. One day, familiar footsteps outside startled Jexyu, and as the iron door opened, he saw the face he had longed for day and night. But without Yichun's command, he held himself back, gripping the bed frame to restrain his excitement, until at last, reunited, they embraced tightly, a scene that nearly moved even the onlookers to tears. Soon after, everyone discussed and agreed to release Jexyu that night, but hearing their praise twisted the cousin's heart even more, and a wicked plan took shape in his mind. He accused Jexyu of being a wolf who had eaten the neighbor's goat and even dragged his girlfriend over as a witness. And when no one believed him, in shame and fury, he knocked the neighbor unconscious with a stick and tried to frame Jexyu for it, even though Yichun trusted Jexyu completely, but she still could not help asking him the doubt in her heart. And when she turned and left, Jexyu froze on the spot, while the cousin's revenge continued as he cut off the electricity and sneaked into the room where Jexyu was being held. Seeing the drawing of the guitar on the table, he slowly approached Jexyu, and despite the risk of being torn apart, he told him that Yichun was unhappy because her guitar was missing, and that it had been stolen by the uncle who raised goats, and if Jexyu could find it, Yichun would like him again. The simple-hearted Jexyu believed every word, and when the power returned, everyone discovered that he had disappeared. The guards were lying unconscious, and the cousins seized the chance to suggest that maybe Jexyu had run off to eat meat again at the goatkeeper's house, warning Uncle Fatty to ready his gun. At that moment, Jexyu was indeed at the uncle's house, tearing the place apart in his desperate search for the guitar, ignoring all attempts to stop him, holding up the drawing to the woman inside and demanding to know where the guitar was. But the frightened woman had no idea what he meant. When the uncle tried to stop him, Jexyu flung him outside effortlessly. Just then, the cousin and a group of men arrived, and as Yichun slowly approached to learn the truth, Jexyu held up his drawing of the guitar. Yichun told him it wasn't here and urged him to leave with her, but the cousin, intent on killing him, grabbed the gun and fired. He had lost all reason, threatening to kill Yichun too unless she came over. For Jexyu's safety, Yichun walked slowly toward him, then shoved aside the machine gun as it fired at Jexyu. This enraged the cousin, and he shot Yichun, knocking her to the ground, then kicked her viciously. Seeing Yichun beaten awakened the wolf boy's rage. His eyes turned blood red. Fur sprouted all over his body, and with a furious roar, he leapt into the air. Bullets from the machine gun sprayed wildly, but driven by fury for the one he loved, he charged through the fire, and with a scream, he sank his fangs into the cousin, killing him on the spot. As snowflakes drifted down from the sky, the wolf boy turned to Yichun, and everyone stared in disbelief at the unbelievable scene. But Jexyu picked her up and ran deep into the forest through the falling snow. In a cave, he gently touched her face, and Yichun, without a trace of fear, bandaged his wounded leg. She asked him if he was really a monster, which one was his true self, then said it didn't matter even if he was. Then she collapsed in his arms. Jexyu laid leaves over her like a blanket and lay down beside her, just as they had once fallen asleep near each other before. The next day, when Yichun woke, she heard the searchers below calling her name, and she knew if they found Jexyu, he would not survive. She begged him to run, but Jexyu, finally together with the one he loved, could not bear to leave. "Go, you idiot. If you get caught, you'll die. I can't be with you now. Leave. Get away. I don't even like you anymore, dirty boy. Go, leave!" she cried desperately, tears streaming down her face, repeating over and over, "Don't come near. I have to go," until her figure vanished from his sight, leaving Jexyu staring with sorrow. When they found Yichun, he never revealed where Jexyu was. To avoid scandal, the group decided to cover it up, and even Uncle Fatty, unwilling to get further involved, let it go. After all this, Yichun's family prepared to move back to the city. While packing, the mother folded Jexyu's ragged clothes with regret, lamenting that she had never bought him even one new shirt. Yichun went to the room where Jexyu had once been imprisoned, thought deeply, then wrote something on paper that he wanted to tell him. As they left, his body trembled as though hollowed out, and no one knew what the note said. Thus, with their departure, the story of the wolf boy seemed to end. 6 years later, on a snowy night, an elderly woman came to the house intending to sell it, and when she entered the room where Jexyu had once been kept, she found it blooming with flowers, warm light glowing inside. She walked slowly, hesitated at the door, smoothed her hair, then finally pushed it open, and in that moment, it felt as though she had traveled back 40 years, for the boy was still sitting there. He slowly held out a piece of paper, yellowed with time, but the writing still clear, and tears welled instantly in her eyes. Then she pulled out the old guitar, its scars still faintly visible, and the boy nodded, lowering his head just as he had years ago, waiting for her hand to stroke him. "Come, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Why did you wait?" she whispered, and the boy only repeated again and again, I finished it, 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 I finished it. The next day, though she had planned to sell the house, the old woman returned to cancel, telling the buyer she would not sell. On the mountaintop, the boy walked slowly, watching her drive away, her face unchanged but marked with an old scar. And so, the story came to an end. A story that left the audience shaken long after, with Song Joong-ki and Park Bo-young's explosive acting bringing to life this tragic and passionate love between human and beast. The ending left countless viewers sighing, seeing the two never truly end up together. But perhaps that was the best ending, for even though they once had pure love, the barrier between human and beast was an uncrossable gulf, just like in real life where countless hardships, family disapproval, mismatched status, and impossible demands can crush love. Go, master. This world will no longer have me, but it's okay. You must find your own happiness. The cry rang out. Heavens, how can I live without you? Heavens! And so the two who could never be together went on living their separate lives, with one living in comfort. And so the wolf boy lived on in the place where he and Yichun had once shared their happiest memories, a land where the seasons always seemed like spring, carrying with him the fragments of their love in silence. But then one cannot help but wonder, if the two had truly cast aside the weight of worldly prejudice and forced themselves to stay together, what kind of fate would have awaited them? The story does not give that answer, but instead leaves us to think. Behind the movie, there are many reflections that stir the heart. It comes from life, yet it rises above life, and through its tale of impossible love, sacrifice, and the cruel distance between what the heart wants and what reality allows, it makes us see our own lives mirrored within it. After watching this film, what thoughts surfaced in your mind?